Hey world, what up? So chaos and turmoil and toxicity has entered the Philadelphia crowd, coming in around 13, 14 games into the NBA season. Now, was this something that NBA fans had expected for the Philadelphia crew to start off with? Not at all. But knowing the National Basketball Association, there tends to be numerous amounts of parity, injuries, and then star players who are going to be under that turmoil, which could eventually lead into potential trade packages after the season due to either not making the playoffs, not making it far, not winning the championship, as well as low expectations for that certain player and their NBA team. And especially when this player's had numerous amounts of years with the same organization, which could lead to potentially going in the new direction. And especially as that NBA team has numerous amounts of draft picks, they can trade that player to rebuild, as well as that they have a young star on the roster. That leads us into the Philadelphia 76ers and Joel, I'm too late, Embiid. Now, looking at the Philadelphia crew, within the first 13 games, they are at the bottom of the Eastern Conference at a 2-11 record. Now, not to get too crazy in the Eastern Conference, the East is pretty weak as it is. Now, if you're the fifth seed as of right now, you do have a losing record and going down with. So, basically what I'm saying is the Philadelphia 76ers are not on quote-unquote true panic mode right now. Out of a 10, if I had to do a panic mode, I would say around a 7 to a 7.5 in that range. After 13 games, they did held a meeting by Kyle Lowry and the crew with both staff and the players. And young Tyrese Maxey, at 23 years of age, took on that quote-unquote leadership role to call out players and especially Joel Embiid for being late to not only practices but game events, internal events within the organization, and so on and so forth. And that's leading to not only just the injury package of Joel Embiid, who's now around 30 years of age, sitting around his ninth NBA season, around 11 total, 9 that he's played. And not only did that lead to questions of his injury history within Mr. Joel Embiid, but now coming into his motivation and his investment and quote-unquote love of the game is in question. Philadelphia, as of right now, they're around 4 to 5 games behind the 6th seed in the Eastern Conference. So not true panic mode as of right now, or not true panic mode. You're sitting around a 7 out of 10. Remember, it's only around an eighth into the NBA season. It is a long journey. So nothing to push on that panic mode and get too emotional. But we're going to jump in here and get more of a case on the detail and insight into the Philadelphia locker room, as well as the quote-unquote new expectations, projections.
Need to head to Miami, friends, where the Sixers' lackluster start to the season continued. Jimmy Butler made his return after missing 4 games. Embiid also in the lineup after being listed as doubtful for most of the day with an illness here today. So we're going to pick this one up in the second quarter. The Sixers start off leading this one. Jared McCain finds Joel Embiid here for the mid-range jumper.
Yeah, that's what he can make.
And watch out for Jared McCain. Right now, I would say him, Dalton Connect, and Zach Edey, the number 1 pick from the Atlanta Hawks, and I think I'm missing one other rookie in there, are going to be battling within that rookie of the year. Even though the rookies are not top-notch within this year for 2024, but keep an eye out for McCain. Philadelphia got something special.
In his sleep, you have to keep your eye on explosive plays because that's what was lacking when it came to his game.
And then kicking it back out to Joel Embiid. Joel looking for the 3 here, Brian, nails it.
That's the Joel Embiid we saw all last year. This was not the Joel Embiid we saw most of last night.
To that point, let's go ahead to the third quarter here. The Heat down by just 3 now. Butler, look at him in the corner there, knocking down a 3 of his own.
Are we yay or nay on the hair?
I think Wendy should try it.
Yay.
I'm yay too.
The Heat turn over the 76ers here, get out and run, and then Hero recovers right there. And then Jared McCain, once again, Tyler Hero takes it all the way for 2 the other way.
Great
Tough finish. Look at this. The 76ers were outscored by 19 points in the third.
I know the Miami Heat regret letting go of Caleb Martin, especially after that 2023 8-seeded NBA Eastern Conference run to the NBA Finals. That's the one I thought should have kept a long time. Man, he was a huge stretch for within that team. Kind of like a Shane Battier back in the 2012 season.
That's their season worst point differential Hero had 18
Didn't
points.
get better.
Yeah, it didn't. To finish one off, Janae, Jimmy Butler takes it to the rack.
Two teams with two different trajectories. They had the same opportunity, missing star players that come back, and one team took the best of it, like with Jimmy Butler there, and another team got the worst of it.
Butler had 30 points, 10.
And another team that has problems of their own is the Miami Heat, sitting at a 6-7 record, around the 6th seed or so in the Eastern Conference. This is going to be pretty much, I fully expect Jimmy Butler's last year with the Miami Heat. I fully expect the Miami Heat to at least be a first-round exit. Their roster is pretty much mid as can be. Pat Riley, I believe, is one of the most overrated general managers when it comes to in the game. The only big piece he did bring in with the past couple of years was Jimmy Butler within the last decade or so, which they got to 2 finals appearances, but besides from that, they didn't have enough roster to pretty much get it done with. And if you remember back in the 2020 NBA season, the Miami Heat were a 5th seed who pretty much were on the road getting to the finals. And then a couple years later in 2023, they were the 8th seed on the road making to the finals, both owing to the Jimmy Butler era. But I got to give credit where credit's due. Jimmy Butler did lead his team to 2 NBA Finals appearances. But overall, Pat Riley and the crew have a lot of questions to where they have not addressed. Number one, and I'm not going to get too deep to this because we're talking about Philly and Joel Embiid, but they need to move Bam to the forward. They need to get a true big on their team. They don't really have any bigs in general as it is. Bam is undersized at 6'9". Within their team, they need a true veteran point guard to lead their team in their exhibition. They have Terry Rozier starting, which he should be a 6-man for a team, never a starter for a true championship contending team. And you got to fill out the rest of the roster as it is. There's too many young guys out there that are giving that quote-unquote chance. Miami's not going to make any noise. If anything, they're going to be a playing team. They'll squeak out for the 8th seed. And who knows, maybe a hungry Atlanta Hawks team could knock them out.
Rebounds, 5 assists. Jimmy's telling them right there to go home. Here was Nick Nurse after the game, but it took a while.
Sorry for the delay. We just had a little meeting, so I just took a little bit longer than normally get here. Won't get into specifics of that meeting, but happy to answer any questions about the game.
Let's get into the specifics of that meeting right now, though, with our senior insider, Shams Charania, because it took over an hour for the team to speak to reporters, Shams, after the game. And just for some context, it's usually like 15 minutes before we see folks start to come out and speak to us. So what more can you tell us about this team meeting that Nurse was alluding to here?
Kyle Lowry, their championship guard, he's the one that called for this team meeting after the game. It included players, included coaches. It was an hour and a half of everyone, all sides, airing out what.
You gotta remember, Kyle Lowry is he has that alpha mentality, that dog who barks. He kind of resembles the Chris Paul type of archetype in the NBA. Now, not as good as a Chris Paul all-star type, but Kyle Lowry did have his moments in Toronto. He is pretty much the second greatest player on the Toronto Raptors franchise, so he should get his jersey retired. He was huge in that 2019 NBA Finals against the Golden State Warriors. And Kyle Lowry's had on and offs in the NBA playoffs, but that NBA Finals, Kyle Lowry was huge and important for the Raptors winning that within there. But basically what I'm saying is he's going to be that top dog to pretty much bark and try to get everyone in line to be that quote-unquote veteran. Kyle Lowry on the team is around 38 years of age. So this is pretty much his last season or second to last, I would expect him to retire pretty soon here. He does already have an NBA championship, so if anything, he's just playing for the money because he does play for veteran minimums right now. So anything he can cash up.
They felt was urgent matters, call to actions on both sides. Nick Nurse challenging the players for having more attention to detail in practices during the games, and then the players also challenging Nick Nurse to hold them more accountable. But the most notable thing, Malika, sources tell me Tyrese Maxey challenged Joel Embiid, the face of that franchise, the former league MVP, about his tardiness and about being on time for team activities. And the
You already know Tyrese Maxey is looking in the mirror and looking in the direction of the franchise and saying, hey, I'm the young pup, I'm the young cat. This is going to be my franchise here pretty soon. He expects Joel Embiid to not be a long tenure Philadelphia 76er. He expects pretty much Joel Embiid to be gone within the next year or two. And Tyrese Maxey can pretty much take the torch to, quote-unquote, lead this team, as he's around 23 years of age. Has a 5-year, $200 million contract. Philadelphia, Daryl Morey is going to be focused on rebuilding with Tyrese Maxey. And depending how it goes, if they do have Joel Embiid for the next year or two, pretty much expect Paul George to be out within the next 2 to 3 years. Even though Paul George does have that 3-year, $155 million contract, I pretty much expect, if anything, if he doesn't finish 3 years.
Trickle-down effect that takes place when a player like Joel Embiid is late or absent or whatever the case may be for any team event or activity, and how that could impact other players and coaches. And they have a very close relationship, Malika. Tyrese Maxey, Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid's really taking Tyrese Maxey under his wing. They hold each other accountable. In this way, Tyrese Maxey tried to do that last night as a leader. This is a team that's 2-11.
Yeah.
They're still hopeful to get Tyrese Maxey back in the lineup soon, but
you got to remember the 2 games that Philadelphia won within the beginning of October to November now, those were both overtime close wins. And if I remember correctly, they did beat the Indiana Pacers, where Tyrese Maxey had around 40 to 45 or so. And then they did win the other overtime exhibition game towards the Hornets. And that was another big
time
game
is running out here for them to really turn this around.
Yeah, when you look at historically teams that have started out the way that the 76ers had, many of them don't make the playoffs, let alone make it to the finals, which is what this team was put together to do. Shams, thank you so very much for those details.
Well, number one, it's a team meeting and not a worldly meeting, so the information shouldn't have got leaked out. So there's no trust in this process.
Yeah, but Perk, this is the NBA, and you have sources everywhere. You have people who have sources, people who know each other, and cameras and everyone. They're going to be everywhere, especially after it was at least an hour or so until they got the interview process. And typically after a game, it takes 15, 20 minutes, and everything's written in Denmark when it comes to Philadelphia. They're bottom of the East. They have star players. They had championship quote unquote aspirations, and they're looking like the 2022 LA Lakers with Russell Westbrook. And
Right.
LeBron,
Number
AD,
two,
Melo.
good for Tyrese Maxey for calling out Joel Embiid, right? I played with 15 plus Hall of Famers, and look, none of them was perfect, but all of them was true professionals, right? And all of them.
Kendrick, you got to stop talking that way. You're a big dog who's a big star in the NBA. Listen, you're what, 1-3, 1-4 in the finals. You hopscotch from Boston, which you won that championship, which you were a pretty solid center. But after that, to Oklahoma City Thunder. Then you hopscotched over to if I remember correctly in the process, the New Orleans Pelicans, the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Were leaders in their own right, meaning showing up on time, respecting the coach. That's the most important thing, because when you're late to the event, when you're late to practices or whatever it may be, it's disrespectful to the coach, and it tends to send a message throughout.
And that's one thing, accountability. Joel Embiid, now if you're Nick Nurse and the crew, you have to stand up and discipline any bad behaviors from your players, let alone star players. This generation of players, pretty much since the 2010s or so, it can go a little further within there, but especially now, this is the day and age where that social media age where these players think they can do whatever the heck they want. They can complain, they can whine, they can generate more femininity and emotions, and pretty much get away with being that quote-unquote spoiled child. Nick Nurse needs to instill accountability and put his foot down. I don't care if you're Joel Embiid. And especially with one thing I do like as of right now with J.J. Redick within the LA Lakers. He's no Darvin Ham who puts his hand in his pocket, yells out salute, doesn't know what he's doing, and let the players run what they run. No. J.J. Redick is a person who's firm or stern. He's going to tell you how it is. Even if you make pretty much a bad play, but then you make a three, he's still going to call LeBron James for that. Is it going to make you uncomfortable? Sure. But then again, you need a foundation, you need a hierarchy when it comes down to it. Joel Embiid has not had that. He's been being lackadaisical, claiming he doesn't want to play back-to-back games for the rest of this season or his career. He's joking around too much. He's at 30 years of age, pretty much around 10 or so seasons in the NBA. Too many jokey moves. And within those 10 years or so in the NBA, Joel Embiid, you have not made a conference finals. You blew 2 second-round appearances. Back when Philadelphia played Toronto, went to Game 7, you lost that. When Philadelphia played the Atlanta Hawks against Trae Young and the crew, they lost at home in Game 7. And then, if I remember correctly as well, when Joel Embiid was with James Harden and they lost to the Boston Celtics, leading 3-2 against Boston back into the 2023 NBA season, if I remember correctly. And they blew that, and they got steamrolled in Game 7 at Boston. So, Joel Embiid, you're out of excuses. You should not be jokey. You should be on a quote-unquote revenge tour. And it's going downhill. And if you're the Philadelphia crew, if you're looking at your quote-unquote leader right now, Joel Embiid is not leading as that. So who else do you look at? Paul George? No. Paul George is not that quote-unquote alpha who can get it done with. That's why you have a young Tyrese Maxey who's going to try to much take that baton and pretty much have the players at least not quote-unquote fall him to greener pastures, that he'd be the true leader, but he's getting there. Even though he's a young gun, he's going to try to perform and play as that 06 Dwayne Wade, the best possibility that he can.
Locker room that others could be disrespectful. So shout out to Tyrese Maxey for calling them out, because in order for the Sixers to go where they're trying to go, Joel Embiid has to be held accountable all across the board.
And Joel Embiid's only played 3 games this season. He's getting like around 15 points or so, 30 minutes, nothing too crazy on the minutes, but he's not as dominant right now. He's looking as a 2019, Boogie Cousins in Golden State. A little slower, coming off that injury. Nothing too dominant right now. So that's not a good situation for Philadelphia, because when they do not have Joel Embiid, they do not win games. And this team is undersized.
I absolutely agree. No matter whether you are playing or not, right? When you're the star, you set the standard, and then rock bottom for this.
These years, the East wasn't bad in all those years. So while that's relevant to show on a graphic, I don't record, Malika.
All right, let's look at this. Started season 2-11 or worse. Made the playoffs in NBA history. So, and I stated this before my last video. These teams that started worse, they did go to the playoffs, but they did lose in the first round. It looks like as of right now, the Philadelphia 76ers. Now, I could still see them make a second round appearance. I don't think it's all said and done as of right now that it's lost. They do have around 68 games or so left in the NBA season. And again, when they do have a healthy Joel Embiid in the team, this team is talented as it is. This team, as constructed healthy, should be a top 4 seed in the Eastern Conference. So if they're able to work where they have to work with as of right now, I can expect them to pretty much finish around a 4th or 5th seed. Depending who they play off in the first round, they can make a second round appearance, but I'm not going to blow it up as of right now. So I'm not going to go to panic mode. Again, I stated before, they're at a 7.5, but the dust should settle after Christmas or so.
Because they're in the Eastern Conference, and so like all of these years, the East wasn't bad in all those years. So while that's relevant to show on a graphic, I don't care about it. I care more about the team spirit and about something else. There's something else that makes me more worried than anything this team means.
Which is what?
Which is the way Joel Embiid looks. When you look at his...
This holiday, Verizon will turn your old or broken phone into a gift. Anyone can trade in any phone in any condition and get Samsung Galaxy S24 Plus and Watch and Tab, all 3 on us. Only on Verizon.
The way he's moving on the court, and you talk to scouts, they're really concerned, what's going on with this guy? When this guy would get the ball in the triple threat position last year, you were cooked. You were cooked. This is a guy who averaged more points than minutes played a year ago. He is averaging 20 fewer points per game. 20 fewer points per game, okay? The other thing is, last night, he didn't get to the foul line. He didn't get to the foul line. This is a guy who would put the ball on the court.
Because he should not be out there right now, number one. And number two, he should have not played in the Olympics. And this is when it comes to players who are pretty much injury prone, a la Anthony Davis. I did not want Anthony Davis playing. I did not want Joel Embiid. Giannis is quote-unquote questionable to where, he's not there as yet, being older in age. And that's hindering.
You didn't have anything to do with it. You had to foul him. So regardless of the record, if Joel Embiid can't rebound, and by the way, all the way down the line, Paul George doesn't look good, Kyle Lowry doesn't look good, Andre Drummond doesn't look good, But if Embiid can't rebound, I mean, in every sense of the word, they're going to have big trouble.
Let's focus in more on Joel Embiid here. How did he look to you, Perk?
Oh, how do he look, huh? Now people are concerned the way that Joel Embiid looks. But when I said last year that he should shut down and not come back for the postseason, people were looking at me like I had chitlins and pig feet on my.
Yeah, but Kendrick Perkins, when you're an NBA star and you're getting paid over $300 million for 5 years, and you're around that play-in tournament to where you can come back and pretty much make a push. Because remember, the Philadelphia 76ers did have a pretty much deep team. They made some moves. You brought in Buddy Hield, D'Anthony Melton. I'm probably forgetting another player or two. That team was deep, as it was. And they did, if they were fully healthy, they had a great shot to beat New York in the first round. And that means they would have played the Indiana Pacers in the second round. So everything is up in the air whenever it comes down to that. I do not blame the Philadelphia 76ers for bringing Joel Embiid late into the season.
At the end of the day, I told y'all what was going to happen because they didn't have a plan in place. He doesn't look healthy. He doesn't have lift. He can't move in the pick and roll. We're watching this. But again, you go out and you get Paul George.
Philly is under pressure due to
the floor. And now
in 2 months, Joel may be back to his normal self, maybe bouncing around when we say, oh, remember how we were worried about in November?
You say no way?
No way. No way. I don't.
Listen, Philadelphia should get a couple games under their belt, have some time off during the holidays, and then as well as the team should slowly get it back together and crumb their way back. I'm not going to focus too much as of right now the downs and lows. Do I expect this team to be a title contender? No. Do I expect the chemistry to get, highly better? No. Probably slightly, because this team is going to pretty much push and force them way to the playoffs, which they will. I fully expect that. Kind of like the Lakers when you had Kobe, Dwight Howard, and the crew. They were off to a terrible start. Had Mike Brown fired him, brought in who they bring in as their head coach? Mike D'Antoni. And they pushed Kobe to the limit. And they were able to make that, I believe, around that 7th seed to play the Spurs in the first round. And there's going to be some other team examples that have happened like that in the past. I think this is going to pretty much resemble that. Same thing with the Milwaukee Bucks with Dame Lillard and Giannis. These two teams should scrape their way into the NBA playoffs to at least be around that 7th or 8th seed. But I'm not going to go too crazy mode as of right now. But let's see what happens with Joel Embiid and the Philadelphia 76ers. Drama and parody has entered the chat. So